one of the most common stories I hear. I'm already a good person, so of course I'm inclusive. And maybe you've told yourself that, but that is not true because being good and being inclusive is not one and the same thing. We are represented. We are represented. We are represented. Welcome to Represented, the podcast. I'm Aniki Shuru, racial equity coach for online business owners who want to be intentionally inclusive by building a business that is racially equitable. I created this podcast to normalize a conversation around racial inclusion so that fear is no longer the barrier that gets in the way of doing this work. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Whether you're taking your first steps or you're well-versed in the journey towards racial equity, this space is for you. So welcome home, friend. Let's get started. From coast to coast, around the globe, we are represented. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Represented Podcast. Last week, Thursday, I wrapped up the AI Bias Aware 3-day experience, and my heart is so full. Over 3 powerful days, online business owners came together to look honestly at where bias shows up in our businesses. And it wasn't in abstract ways, but in the everyday tools and systems we use. And let me tell you, the breakthroughs were there and they were big. In today's episode, however, I want to take you behind the scenes and share 3 lessons that really stood out. Whether you joined us live, thank you, or you're just tuning in now, these are insights that every online business owner needs to hear. And if what I share resonates with you, I really hope it does, I will tell you at the end how you can access the full recordings. Because, trust me, you'll want to sit with these in more depth. And so, on day 1, we looked at one of the most common stories I hear. I'm already a good person, so of course I'm inclusive. And maybe you've told yourself that, but that is not true because being good and being inclusive is not one and the same thing. We explored the gap between our good intentions and the actual experiences of people who come into our spaces. And one of the most powerful moments was a reflection. That reflection was, I might think I'm inclusive, but how do others genuinely feel in my presence? That landed deeply for us because it shifts the question from, am I inclusive? Because the answer is normally going to be, of course I'm inclusive. To, how am I practicing inclusion today? In other words, what am I doing to be inclusive in my business? And then on day 2, we got really practical. We pulled apart the unseen gaps that creep into our businesses without us even realizing. So the first thing we did was we looked at language. What kind of language are we using? And in particular, we zeroed in on 2 types of language, the universal types of language where we say we all, where we're putting everybody in the same category and we're assuming we're all the same. Or worse, the kind of language that is harmful, metaphors that minimize real histories like the phrase, don't be a slave to your 9 to 5. Break free from the chains of your, desk job. Secondly, we looked at images in greater detail and the representation of those images. What are we trying to put forward? Which can sometimes be more about appearance than reality. And then we dove into design programs, how we design our programs, our offers, often centering Western or dominant culture norms. and not actually being of service to everyone. Because when we are creating things from that lens, it is tending to serve one group of people. And what made this session so powerful was seeing just how often AI amplifies these patterns, defaulting to whiteness, replicating stereotypes, and reinforcing the very systems we're trying to shift away from. For participants, it was the first time they'd really audited their own copy. We're talking about visuals, their language, and even program design through this lens. Hey, before we go any further, I want to let you know that the doors to round 12 of Represented are now open for enrollment. This is my signature 10-week program where we conduct a comprehensive audit of every part of your business, unpack your personal unconscious biases, and build systems that make inclusion sustainable. I've been running Represented for 4 years, and in that time, I've supported over 100 online business owners to move from good intentions to genuine inclusive practices. And this round is different because the course has been updated to take into account the impact AI is having on our coaching industry. So if your learning here is sparking something in you, and I hope it is, and you're ready to take this work deeper, Represented is where you'll find the guidance and, most importantly, the community to do just that. Head over to anikishuru.com/represented to secure your place. The link is in the show notes. Okay, now back to our episode. By day 3, it was clear awareness is not enough. Awareness can even become another comfort zone where we know the language, but nothing changes in practice. That's why we created a 30-day inclusive action commitment, a simple step-by-step framework to move you from knowing to actual doing. Participants were able to map out 3 things, actually 4. One language shift they'd make this week, one representation update they'd put in place within 2 weeks, one program design experiment they'd pilot within a month, and one feedback system they'd create within 30 days to hear directly from their clients. This commitment was so well received because it turned big ideas into concrete, doable steps. And it showed that creating an inclusive business isn't about overhauling everything overnight. It's about consistent, intentional action. Now, these 3 lessons, the myth of being already inclusive from day 1, the hidden ways we exclude from day 2, and the need to move from awareness to action in day 3 are just the beginning, my friend. If this has sparked something in you, I want you to know that the full recordings of the AI Bias Aware 3-day experience are now available for purchase. Inside, you'll hear the full teachings, the reflections, almost 3 hours long, and you'll get the guided prompts and tools that participants said were incredibly supportive in helping them to take action. Especially that 30-day inclusive action commitment, a framework that takes you step by step from awareness to aligned action in your business. So, if you're ready to stop assuming inclusivity and start practicing it in real, tangible ways, head to the link in the show notes to purchase the recordings. Remember, being a good and kind person is great. It's beautiful. But that's not what brings about change. In fact, what I've personally come to realize is that it can be a barrier to taking action. The future of online businesses belong to those who choose to see what's really happening now and taking action. And I'd love for you to be part of that future. Head over now to anigishuru.com/experience to purchase the recordings.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a review so this podcast can reach more online business owners, and together we can begin to normalize racial inclusion in the online coaching space. I'd love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where this podcast episode was recorded, the Wiradjuri people in central New South Wales, Australia. Music produced in Nairobi, Kenya by Patrick St. P. Mbaru and Kambua Mathu. Vocals by Joanne Matata.
Represented from coast to coast.